And so then I thought, oh, wow, if I do admit my story, I'm going to be unhappy.
People are going to look down on me in some way because I'm this way and it's weird. It's not accepted. Okay, this is how I feel comfortable now. And so, and this is me in my 30s.
It's just interesting to me how people find their paths.
There was otherness that was put upon us at an early age. And that's even before I came out.
Hi, I'm Jim Fielding. Welcome to Ask for an Answer. Well, hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here today. We are recording in Los Angeles in December 2025. I'm calling these the Los Angeles sessions. Like I just decided that that's what I was going to call it. But I'm so excited to welcome you all to Ask for an Answer with Jim Fielding. And my guest today, like this is a perfect way. We're starting our morning. It's a beautiful sunny morning here in LA. We're starting a morning with a guest that I'm super excited about. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves and share a little bit of their story, and then we're going to dive in. So welcome.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Jim.
Yeah.
It is a beautiful day here in LA. I am not going to lie. My name is Wadooah Wali, and I am currently the co-founder of an award-winning XR studio. But I think the sum of my experience would just be that I'm a storyteller.
Yes.
I am a storyteller. That is first and foremost.
I love that. And I love how we met, because we met online. This is the first time we've ever met in person.
I know.
And it's so perfect that it worked out this way. We met online. We had a couple Zoom calls, which I was fascinated by. I'm fascinated by what you do. But tell us a little bit of like your journey of like how you got to what you're doing right now. And then I want to dive into what you're doing because it's fascinating.
Well, I mean, like you, we've been surfing the media waves in all their various iterations. I got started a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away called Gainesville, Florida. And if I talk about it too much, you might hear me start to drop my G's. And my southern twang might come out a little bit.
So
but I told my parents when I was young that I wanted to write and direct and produce stories for screens. And of course, not that eloquently because we weren't calling it screens back then. But and them being very practical people in Gainesville, Florida. Looked at me and they're like, do you know how many successful Black female writer, director, producers are? And by the way, I'm old. So this is like decades ago, decades and decades. And so there really weren't a whole lot of examples. And I understand that they were trying to protect me and ensure that I was able to eat. And so I never let go of that idea, and I still didn't fully understand what that was, but I knew that I liked to write, and so I just continued to write. I shot. I did a lot of shooting. My father was a photographer, and I went into public relations. I went to school, University of South Florida. Woo woo, go Bulls! And got my degree in mass communications and minored in speech and rhetoric. So I just was fascinated by the word and the power of story and just the ability to connect and inspire people. So I was doing. I picked PR before I even knew what it was, and so when I look back on what I was doing in high school, I was like, oh, I was organizing this and I was promoting that, and just kind of continued on with that. But and so I got a job out of school with the Tampa Tribune doing marketing and special events. And after a year of doing that in Tampa, it was like, okay, here's your 2% raise. Go out and do it again. And it was just like, okay, I just blew doors and made all this magic, and that's it.
Right.
So, yeah, I just started thinking about where else I could live, and I thought, San Francisco, why not?
Why not?
Why not? And took a chance, and a lot of people were worried about me because I didn't have a place to live, didn't quite have a job in mind, but I believed that, there's more out there, and I believed in myself. And while people were trying to share their boxes with me and telling me that I was going to, you need them for Golden Gate Park, I was like, no, I don't think that's going to be my path. And so I fell into the crazy world of high-tech PR in the late 90s, early 2000s, at the height of the .com, and it was fascinating.
How long was that phase then? Like that San Francisco tech because it was almost like the tech bubble you were
Yeah, it
in,
was.
right?
It was.
Yeah,
I got right in, and then it popped, and
yeah.
and so the magic was gone, and I think I just started thinking about other, like what else I could do besides PR and marketing.
Hmm.
But I fell in love with the entrepreneurial scene, and so yeah, that lasted until I think one of the last PR things that I was doing in the Bay was opening up Facebook, taking it from when it was just schools to when it was opening up with
Oh my
everybody,
gosh.
and that was a whole thing. So that was really exciting. But I kind of I got recruited to come down to LA to work for Richard Rosenblatt, who had just bought MySpace from Fox and sold it and spun it out, and so started to use that money to start a company called Demand Media.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I got to go to LA for a tech
Mm-hmm.
company. But what I didn't realize is that it wasn't the old, like online storage data rack
Yeah.
server that was happening in San Francisco. It was more of online publishing and starting to think about media, websites as media companies. And
Right.
so,
Right.
we launched
God, I remember that
livestrong.com.
phase.
Yeah, right.
Lord. So, did you have, because I had it, because I was Northern California, did you have a Northern California bias? Like, did you think California kind of could end at Santa Barbara, basically?
I mean, I was always walking. I mean, this Florida girl
Yeah.
from
Yeah,
small,
yeah,
I
yeah,
was like
totally.
always worried about earthquakes whenever
Yeah.
whenever the earth would move. I was just like, and in my head, I was
Very
just like,
sensitive.
just come live here for a little bit and then get out before it does fall into the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was in San Francisco and got recruited to come down to LA, and I had a bad bias, I'll admit it. Like I really just, and then I moved to LA and loved it, but I had to understand it because I really loved San Francisco and the era you were there. I mean, we were kind of there at the same time,
We were
and
ships passing.
yeah, and it was just such San Francisco. There was so much possibility. I mean, it was, and I remember when the bubble burst and all that kind of stuff. But there just was so much innovation going on.
It
and
was
so much.
and the bubble, and I think it was a combination of the bubble and September 11th happening. And so I think I was only there for another. I moved down to LA in about late 2006, early 2007.
Yeah.
And I mean, I didn't have any. I was other than the fact that I froze my butt off because unknown to me because I hadn't gone to San Francisco.
Yeah.
It was really cold.
Cold.
It was cold,
especially summer.
So I got a place by the beach, and at first I thought, oh, that's awesome. But then it was like, oh God, coldest, foggiest part of. So when I got, I'm like, moved to LA, I don't have any notions about it other than it's going to be warmer than here.
No, and you can live by the beach and not be fogged in every day.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
that's so funny.
And that office, Demand's office was in, near Santa Monica Beach. So I was really enjoying beach.
That's so funny. Okay, so I want to go back to childhood for a moment because you have brothers and sisters?
I do. 2 brothers. 2
Okay,
sisters.
what number are you in the family?
I am the oldest girl, so second child.
I'm really into birth order, so I'm fascinated by this because I'm fascinated, and maybe it's because your father was creative. I'm fascinated about the conversations where they were being realistic with you, but they also didn't clip your wings, it doesn't sound like. Like they were like, okay, we're going to harness that energy a little bit, but you felt supported, it sounds like.
I felt empowered because
That's
they
a good
always,
word. Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say support because they didn't quite understand.
Right.
And so anything that wasn't teacher, doctor, lawyer was kind of off the grid. So even when I said PR, for years my mom was like, "Oh, she's a reporter,
Journalist,
so journalist." And so it was just more about find something that you can do that will sustain
you exactly.
And let's be realistic. I mean, even in today's world, we I maybe didn't come into the workforce with the same preconceived notions or the same kind of fear about how I'd move through the world. But I mean, like I did understand and appreciate the sensitivities and just the proclivities that they instilled in me before.
And any of the other siblings creative careers, or did they go different routes?
No, just me.
It's interesting. Yeah, I think that's so interesting. I mean, oldest girl. Yeah, I mean, I think the expectations are there and stuff. I mean, it's just interesting. But I love that word empowered. I mean, I think for parents, that's a really good word that you felt that. And it's okay that they were being realistic and educating you too. I mean, I think that's their job,
They were
right?
giving me the real world education, but
Yes.
I read. I mean, so that was
Mm-hmm.
reading was my gateway drug to the world. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, like we didn't have much growing up. So
Mm-hmm.
anytime I could go and just, hit the bookmobile and just get the
Love
books
that. Love that.
and just see, like what all was out there. And so that was my thing when I decided to leave Tampa. I was just like, there's a whole big world out there that I have.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that I was stepping into the big city by,
Mm-hmm.
leaving Gainesville, Florida and going to Tampa. But I was like, there's so much more to be had. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, while I'm young, let me get out there and see what I can do.
That's tremendous. But you realize that's tremendous self-confidence and
I
self-awareness.
don't know. I didn't think about it. It was just more hunger. It was,
Yeah,
I wanted to see. And I felt like,
it's amazing.
yeah, that I felt like I was not doing myself the right service by not tasting
Mm-hmm.
life and seeing what's possible.
Okay, so you've got like this adventure bug, this risk-taking bug. Any of that in the family, or are you the only one that was like doing that too? Like, did the rest of them all hang around
Yeah,
Florida?
I'm the only one that's way out here on the
I
West
love
Coast.
that.
Yeah, my younger sister has not left Gainesville ever.
Hmm.
But yeah, yeah, I have another sister that went into the military, but yeah, I'm the wild crazy one.
That's no, but I think it's so fascinating because I only have one sister. We're similar, but we're different. I mean, we're best friends, but I mean, we were raised in the same household. But it's just interesting to me, especially in family with multiple kids, same parents raised in the same household, how people find their paths. Like, and so if you found yours through books and just like listening to your inner voice, I can tell you were like listening, like something was driving you, like something in your conscience, I call it my Jiminy Cricket, like something was driving you. So that's
I did a
amazing.
lot of caretaking of my
Mm,
younger siblings, so it was definitely, especially when my parents split. So there
mm,
was a lot of responsibility that I took on at a young age. That looking back on it now, I'm just like, oh yeah, I didn't really have a childhood.
mm-hmm,
And I think also we were raised Muslim in the South,
mm,
so I mean, like all of the why my name's Arabic, but
yeah.
and so there was otherness that was put upon us at an early age, and
Mm.
that's even before I came out. So like I was.
I know, because I'm like, okay, wait a minute. She's got an Arabic name. She was raised Muslim. What age did you embrace your sexuality story?
It wasn't until went to college that I started because there
Hmm.
wasn't really any room at
Right, of
home
course.
dealing with the family stuff
Yeah.
and also growing up in a conservative household like that,
Yeah.
and so Muslim women are seen and not heard, and it's
Hmm.
also the children, and so it was very
Mm,
much about playing small, and I think that was kind of the thing. There was always there was a container that was always around me, and I just always
mm-hmm.
felt like something wanted to get out, and maybe
Yeah,
that.
you were. Yeah, I can see you like pushing against that container. That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I love that you used othered, right? Because I use that word a lot because it's like, and you had a lot of others. Like I'm thinking of Gainesville, Florida. I mean, many of our listeners may have never been
They
to
probably
Gainesville,
know it, but
Florida,
yeah,
but
they'll Google it.
yeah, I was like, people probably know the University of Florida is
Well,
there.
and they just hear Florida, and it's like Florida
I
man,
know,
like
I
all the
know.
I
And it's like, she's a Florida native, people.
I try to I'm like, good things do come out of Florida. I'm like, I can't talk. I mean, there are so like there's other things that I can't question, but
Uh,
I'm a good thing,
is your mom still there?
No, she is in North Carolina with
Oh,
with my brother.
oh, wow.
So we have people. I mean, so yeah, I'm
So
funny to.
so if you go home, you go to visit her or do you go to Gainesville?
I go to Gainesville. She's recently moved out
Okay,
there, but
okay.
I think she's moving back too. She keeps going back and forth between family.
Oh, that's
So
so funny.
yeah, I really Cackalackaville. I've got family in Florida. I've got family in North and South Carolina, and people in LA would never even know what kind of like. Yeah, I went to my family reunion last month and drove down a dirt road to my grandparents'. Like, it's like, who lives like this?
It's people do.
People
That's
do.
the real America.
It
I
is.
mean, I think having lived, I mean, I was 25 years total in California and 5 in Northern California, 20 basically in Southern California. And when I moved to Georgia, one of the opinion pieces I wrote was basically titled, "Did 25 years in California make me soft?" And the answer was yes. Like, because you start to take for granted. First off, you take certain physical things, the water, the weather, like especially here, for granted. Yes, it rains, and yes, there's mudslides, and there's some fires and things like that. But for the most part, weather doesn't really drive your life. When you live out here, you kind of are like, okay,
You take it for
you
granted.
take it for granted. But the other thing you take for granted is that I just assumed everybody, even if they weren't pro LGBTQ, they were probably an ally, or at least I felt safe. Like, I think that whole physical and psychological safety that I talk a lot about, I just literally took for granted. And then when you move to the South as a gay man, and then, the man I married now being Black, like, oh, okay, we're gay and we're an interracial couple. And you talk about like adding on the others, right? You add on all those others. And I was like, it made me soft. It really did. And I had to relearn some of the skills I had from growing up in the Midwest and being gay. I had to relearn some of those skills and some of those spidey senses, like, the survival
They are
skills.
life-changing and life-saving.
Yes. No. And I literally now know, and I still, as much as I love living in Atlanta, when I walk in new situations, I'm like scanning. Like, sometimes my head's virtually moving, but I'm also just scanning with my eyes and my brain. And you're like friendly, not friendly, cautious.
It's a vibe.
Right. It's really, unfortunately, those of us that grow up othered have that sense. It's a skill.
Spidey senses. I like before code switching, there was that term. I was constantly doing that, and going back, it's like that. Like I said, I was just back there for a family reunion in Gainesville, and the next day I went out to lunch with my mom and an uncle and my sister, and we walked into Sonny's Real Pit Barbecue. Been around since 1960 or 70, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, and there's multiple occasions. And so we just went into the one, and it was almost like needle on the record. And I was just like, and my mom was like, welcome back to Florida. And I was like, they just got to deal with us. And our server was just right on it. She was just like, just went above and beyond, and was like, right. And this is also Gainesville, Florida. This is, unfortunately, because people are used to living these, dealing or feeling separate from other people, that they don't, it is jarring, but sometimes it just takes a moment to just settle. And it is something that, I think we do take for granted here in LA, or going to places like New York or other.
I mean, the coasts, basically.
Yeah.
Like, I realize, like, and I know Florida's on the coast, but Gainesville's not. But Seattle, Portland, New York, Boston, like where I was doing business, where I was traveling, like, I realized was very bubbled. Like, and I think it's been good for me. Like, and
entertainment too. You didn't get such a haul. I mean, it was like, let me tell you, the transition from tech into entertainment.
I wanted to go there for sure. I want to go there. Before that though, I want to go back to Facebook for a minute, because I didn't know that, and I think that's fascinating. So you were there when it made the transition into what it is today. Yeah. We have you to blame.
Yes. Guilty. It was during this time that we had just got this. So when I watch a movie like The Social Network, and it's right around that time where the cards, CEO bitch, I think I probably still have one of those cards in a box, and tucked away somewhere. But but I mean, it's been interesting. I've been a part of those different waves. So opening Facebook, and it was just like, how do we position Facebook against a MySpace and a Friendster, which were already out there and
doing well. I mean, they were big.
And they were doing well, and a wholly, it's like, how do you transition from schools to everybody in a way that makes sense for that population? But I also was there for online postage, so helped that become a thing back in the day. And online search was where I launched Ask Jeeves. And so it's just been, it's been interesting to be a part of these different things that are now inherent to what we do.
Okay, so I have to be a fanboy for a minute, because the listeners are going to ask me, how much of Social Network is true? Like, what percentage?
Well, I mean, it's a we do entertainment, so I always say
it's dramatized.
It's dramatized,
Right?
dramatized, and I mean, like, early on, I'm like, in every bit of truth, there's a bit of fiction. In every bit of fiction, there's a bit of truth.
Yes.
And so somebody was like, but you don't believe anything. I'm like, no, it's up to you to find your own truth,
Hmm.
and what's being presented.
I love that you said that because I tell people, because people ask me, because I was in Hollywood for so long, right? And I'm like, even if 50% of the story is true, like it's 50%. Like I always say where there's smoke, there's fire, right? I think, and so people will ask me all the time, like, what was it like working with so and so, or what was it like working at Disney, or what was it like working? And I'm like, okay, well, take 50% of what you've read or what you think you know, and just assume 50% is true.
Right.
Like, so half. So half was good, half was bad, but like whatever story you're referring to, or a movie or a documentary you watched or whatever, just assume 50% is true.
Well, I mean, and that's just true of life and how we experience things because, also how we're feeling on a particular day. And so
Yeah.
if we're both rushing to the elevator and, you know, you just brush by me because you're thinking about other things, I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna, my story is that this guy is rude and
Mm-hmm.
and your story is just like, I didn't even see you. Was
Mm-hmm.
in my head. And so I think it's, I don't think that, I mean, I think that that's part of the storytelling
I do.
that we
I
do.
do. What you said at the beginning, I mean, that you're a storyteller at heart. I mean, it just makes sense with everything you're explaining. So, talk to me about how you got to doing what you're doing now, because I think this is interesting too.
Yeah, and it's funny because I said that I wanted to write,
Hmm.
direct, and produce, but I never said I wanted to live. I mean, living in
Yeah.
LA, living in Hollywood was never part of that plan.
Yeah.
I didn't, and here I am living in
Yeah.
LA, and I'm working in the entertainment industry and entertainment adjacent now,
Yes. Yeah.
and so it started when I moved down to LA, and I was working for demand media, which
Hmm.
at one point was valued more than the New York Times because this was starting to be the diminishing publishing industry, the
Wow. Yeah. Traditional publishing.
traditional
Yeah. Yeah.
publishing,
Yeah.
and we were an early YouTube partner, so we were talking about the democratization of content, and how now with everybody, like we have cameras in our pockets, and you can,
And remind people what year this was, because
this
I think
was
this is
this
fascinating.
is around 2007, 8, yeah,
Yeah.
2008, yeah,
These discussions that are happening now, we were having back then.
right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I
and
just
and
like
so
people to remember
me with
that.
doing PR and working with other content
Hmm.
creators who were on doing things on YouTube and I was just like, huh, um, well, you know what, what's something I've always wanted to do because I
Hmm.
also found myself in LA and newly single because my
Hmm.
marriage had fallen apart and I was like, what's something I've always wanted to do? Always wanted to tell a story, and so I'm here in LA, and I've got access to a camera, and so I
Hmm.
started working on a documentary in my quote unquote spare time while taking demand media public, and so I just decided I
Hmm.
was going to do a documentary because at this point in time I'd done different
Because
broad
why not?
because why not? And it's something you can pick up and put down, so it's
Right.
not anything like a narrative story that you have to shoot in a continuous set. So, and also I was doing it. I was kind of doing my production experience via broadcast packages that I was, so I was
Hmm.
learning to work with directors and producers
Hmm.
to put together, media packages for companies that I was working with for PR. And so I was just like, oh, we just need cameras, we need good sound. And then, and yeah, I started working on a documentary called Gaze of the Beholder. And over the course of well, ultimately became 2.5 years because at one point, I was trying to say that demand media was going to go public the same year that I was going to finish the film. And that was just crazy. So I
Hmm.
had to put the the film on the back burner, and then take that company public. And then when the time was right, I cashed out stock options and decided to finish my movie. And I also started taking some classes because we're here in LA, and so
Hmm.
no problem to go see director that I am inspired by. Oh,
Hmm.
Ava DuVernay is going to go give a talk. I'll go listen to her. And so I was
Hmm.
getting all these things through osmosis, and lo and behold, the film put it in some film festivals and it won some awards. And
Right.
so it's like, oh, all of a sudden I'm an award-winning filmmaker. And not that that's what I wanted to stop, but it was just kind of
Hmm.
my gateway drug into, oh, I can tell my own stories in
Hmm.
addition to telling other people's stories.
Yeah. I love that you've had, like, I'm seeing this pattern of these sparks. Like, it's really interesting. And that risk taker in you is quite interesting. Like, and because you start I don't think you always know where the projects are going to end up, right? Like, you just kind of start.
Yeah, I mean, and so that project begat meeting some other friends who were queer content creators, and we were talking about where do we put our stuff and how do we make sure it gets seen and not buried in these larger, stores of like Netflix or Amazon, because I had the opportunity to put my movie there. And so we're like, we need our own media company. So that's how we hatched Reverie. LGBT streaming service. It's like, okay, we just need like we can just build some apps and, put it on Roku or put it on these different things and all this, and then start, building community with other queer content. And then me coming from the tech world, just thinking like, okay, well, let's make sure that we have podcasts and let's aspire to gaming at some point so that we can just be the all on ramp to all things. And I think that it was really exciting to do that. And I'm happy that it's still going today, because I know that as a when I was growing up in Gainesville, Florida, my access to community at in the early 90s, late 80s was the gay aisle in Blockbuster. And so it's like once you finish all like what else do we have?
The 12 movies that
right?
were there, right? Yeah.
And so being able to offer this to people around the world and getting emails from people in places like Russia or the Middle East that are saying, I would die without, it's illegal.
It's
and,
life-saving.
It's life-saving.
Yeah.
I know that. So, again, the power of story, creating community.
I just think it's so important for any young people that are going to watch or listen to this. Like, you're hitting on some huge ass themes here. So I'm just going to call them out. Because first off, you are a lifelong learner and constantly curious, which I love about you, which I talk about all the time, because you're never done. I can tell.
And you're never bored.
No, you're never bored. And I think it's so, I tell young people all the time, because I spend a lot of time on college campuses and a lot of times when people look at your career or my career, they think like we were these huge planners, right? And I'm like, so many things happened because a door opened and I went through it, right?
Absolutely.
Like I believed enough in myself, like I hear from you, that I was like, I'm going to try this. Like, I'm going to take that turn. And I think also a lot of the stuff you did, it wasn't necessarily for like a higher title or more money or more, like you were doing it because you're like, wait a minute, I'm going to grow. I'm going to learn something new. And I think that's so important, because a lot of young people look at careers and they're like, I'm going to do this for 2 years and then I'm going to get promoted and then I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do this. I'm like, it's not that linear.
No.
It's careers aren't linear.
Especially
they're
these days.
Oh.
I mean, like, well, let's not even talk about that. The job market is...
It's crazy. And by the way, you also are like, you're the queen of side hustles. You were like side hustle at stuff. Like, you're working and you're taking a company public. Like, I'm going to go make a documentary. It's like, not like I'm going to go just like, relax. I'm going to go make a documentary.
It was relaxing. It was like, okay, work 12 hours, come home, give myself like 2 hours to eat and decompress, and then get back online until like 2 in the morning. Like, yeah, sure.
But I think it's so interesting. And the whole thing, also, you have that entrepreneurial spirit. First, I have the community, and I love that you talk so much about our community and the community and your community that you build. I think that's amazing. But also, the fact that you were like, I want to make people's lives better, right? Like I want to help people, like consciously or unconsciously. You really were, and I do think, I think about growing up, because I'm older than you are, but I grew up like we didn't even have the Blockbuster aisle. Like, I literally was going to like the one gay bookstore, like under the cover of darkness, trying to find anything.
What about, do they have the theaters where once upon a, like they might have that occasional art house?
Yes, like I feel like I grew up in Toledo, Ohio, which is like an Ohio version of Gainesville, Florida, and by the way, I was convinced I was the only gay kid in town. Like, I literally thought I was the only one who was feeling like I was feeling, which is so funny now, because after the book came out and I started to get more public, like, people contact me from high school and they're like, I was gay in high school. I'm like, you were? Like, and I think, like, how different would it have been? We could have gone to prom, right? I was like, I watch movies now like Love, Simon or things like that. And I'm like, of course, who wouldn't want that life? Like, I wish I was strong enough to embrace myself in high school and feel safe enough to do, it took me, I didn't really come out until I was 25. I
Yeah.
basically came out when I was 23 after college and then didn't really tell my parents until I was 25. So
Same.
I
Similar.
think, God, how different would it have been? Because I knew at 12, I knew at 13, I knew at 14. I didn't really know what it was called and everything, but
We didn't have language for it because it was definitely
no.
not discussed in the house, but I always knew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew I felt different. I also knew I was aware enough because I was a white male that I had a certain amount of privilege that by acknowledging my story, I was giving up some privilege. Like I was very aware that I was going to be marginalizing myself. And it doesn't mean that I didn't want to marginalize myself. I wasn't afraid of that, but I was just aware of it. So it's almost like the conversation your parents were having with you about like your career ambitions. Like, even though we never sat and talked about it, like I was raised in a really homophobic, like environment where anybody that was perceived different was just basically bullied. And so it was happening at my dad was a fireman and a cop. So you can imagine that environment, right?
Wow.
And so even though he didn't realize that he was basically bullying me by telling these stories he was telling about other people that were perceived as queer or gay or light in the loafers or whatever they called them.
Right. All the things.
It was basically just pushing me deeper into the closet because I thought, oh my God, they're never going to accept me.
They weren't creating a safe environment for you to feel like you can,
And I knew I had to get out. To me, for me to be me, I knew I had to get out of Toledo, Ohio. As much as I appreciate my hometown and a lot of roots and foundation and morals and ethics and everything came from there, my extended family, the whole bit, I just knew I had to get out. Like if I couldn't experiment, then I just wasn't going to make it.
absolutely.
I just was not. And I was so different, even though I was the firstborn. I had a younger sister I was very close to. But when I looked at like my cousins, my extended family, there was no one else like me. I was like, and I kept wondering, like, what happened? You know what I mean? Like, again, the constantly curious in me, even as a kid, I was a smart kid. I did well in school. And I thought, is it biology? Like, what happened? Right? Like, why did I come out this way?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you went through that, right? Like, because you're like, I don't know.
Yeah, it was always, and especially having those conversations with my siblings. It's
Yeah.
like, well, and it was, a lot of
Yeah.
resistance, and at some point, I just stopped asking why it was different and just continued to do because I'm like, okay, if you don't want to, then I'll do it, and but it did create a little bit of I guess they call it survivor's remorse, for having the boat and getting out because I think like you, and Gainesville luckily has the University of Florida there, which
University towns usually help.
helps keep bring some of the goodness in, but you leave that bubble and it wasn't great, and even a place like Tampa with a little bit more city is still and so I knew that I just felt from myself if I don't do these things I'm not going to be happy and don't know what's going to happen to me.
Well, again, I think it's interesting because the times we grew up, again, for any of our younger listeners, like I knew gay people, but they were not living happy life. Like they, and they weren't living the kind of life that I thought I wanted to live. Right. Like, and so then I thought, oh, wow, if I do admit my story, I'm going to be unhappy or I'm going to not have this life that I imagined.
People are going to look down on me in some way because I'm this way and it's weird. It's not accepted. It's yeah.
And I think, it's so funny, I'm a big RuPaul fan, but I'm definitely like an example of like when Ru says, if you can't love yourself, how are you going to love anyone else? Because I think for me, my journey to where I am today was I had to fall in love with myself. I had to accept that I was literally, I talk about like Lady Gaga born this way, like that because I tried to change. Like I tried. I went to therapy. I was like, because I thought there was something wrong with me that could be fixed, right? Whether it was do therapy or a pill or something. Because I thought, especially in Midwest Ohio, happiness was married to a woman with 2 kids and a white picket
Family, yep,
fence and the
house,
dog and all
kids,
that.
yep.
Yeah, I just, that was what success, that's what happiness, that was my role models. And you mentioned it earlier because I think the work you're doing now, and I want to get to the work you're doing now, but it's like we didn't have role models.
We
didn't
didn't.
have representation.
And that's why I rushed into a marriage and, because I was trying to check the boxes of like, look, family, and we had a big, wonderful wedding and, we were going to do the kids and the house and all the things. And the happy accident was my film, which was about beauty and body image. When I started the journey, I just thought, like even when I was shooting it, because to watch it now, it's like I can tell when I was filming the earlier ones because I would tell my cinematographer, I would be like, okay, just don't worry about me because we're going to edit me out somehow. I just want the stories. And so, a couple weeks in and we're reviewing footage and I'm like, these conversations are interesting, but it's missing something. And she was like, it's missing you. And I was like, oh. Right. If I'm going to ask people to show up as their authentic selves and talk about, can you look in the mirror and say that you love, that I'm beautiful? Can, because if going back to Rue, I'm like, if you can't look in the mirror and say that I am beautiful, how can you expect society? How can you accept your parents? How can you expect your partners to say that you're beautiful? And so all of a sudden, I mean, especially being PR, I've always been pushing all the people out.
You've always been on message too,
and
right?
on message and behind the scenes. But all of a sudden, it's like, oh crap! As the director, producer, and writer of this movie, I have to actually put myself in it. And so it actually, I mean, because I had come out in the post college years, and then I was mostly out in the workplace, but still playing really small and still going to work functions, putting myself in dresses and heels and trying to conform and so it was so doing this documentary that all of a sudden it's like, I mean, like I'm talking about how, my mom would make me like, oh, these are the days that you have to wear a dress because this is what little girls do. And it just felt like I was in drag. And so, talking about it in the movie and then going to these screenings and having to talk about it made me come out in a different way. So, and like I said, I was doing this movie while taking demand public. And so at this time we had just launched a website with Tyra Banks called Type F and Type F for fashion, fashion. That was the thing. and it was like, and so we, like I had done, put together this big party and event in New York. We rang the bell. And, I'm standing in the box next to Tyra at some point afterwards. She looks down at me and, and this is the first day that I decided I wasn't going to put on a dress for these events, these work events. And so it was like, I think maybe I didn't have the hats at that time, but I, put on
now it's your look. Yes.
They started, I mean, so I started going to work functions with I'm like, okay, pants, slacks and, a vest and button down shirt. Then the hat came out and it was like, okay, this is how I feel comfortable now. And so, I never forget going to that party that night and thinking, how am I going to be, and this is me in my 30s.
Yeah.
And worrying about the clothes that I'm wearing in a, in a corporate, public setting and feeling like, am I going to get in trouble for not, donning the dress? And it's I don't know. We got
no, but I think it's so important because it's draining and people don't realize that like, it's not even that you're living a dual life because you really were embracing your authenticity, but you're playing a game, you're playing a part. And I say, even now for me, it's funny for you as a documentary. I think for me, it was the book, right? And the book's only been out 2 years, but and people see me now and they say, oh my God, you look different. Like you look happier. And I'm like, I honestly think it took me till I was in my 50s. Even though I was an out gay man and I was doing well, but I think this version that I am right now is the most authentic version of myself, right? And that I literally have this daily, it's so funny you're talking about the mirror. Like I have this daily mantra I'm doing now where I look in the mirror and I'm like, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And you are the best version of yourself right now. Like I have to remind myself of that because I think we've been socialized for so long that there was a better or a different version of yourself that was better or more acceptable or more societally acceptable. And I especially think now, because I think the world is hard right now. And I think with everything going on with federal governments and state governments and local governments, like there's many people that are like trying to force our stories again and trying to force us back into the closet. And I feel like that's why I've had to double down. That's why I was like, okay, I'm going to do a podcast and I'm going to go on this book tour and I'm going to give speeches and
Yep.
stuff like that, because I almost feel like I'm doing it for like the younger version of ourselves,
Yes.
right? Because I sat there and said for so long, I didn't have role models. I didn't have representation. I was like, oh my God, I'm an elder now. I freely admit it. Like I'm an elder in the community,
Guilty.
right? We're an elder, right?
Elder queers.
And right. But I feel like it's our job. We have to give back because we're trying to create those physically and psychologically safe spaces, not only for ourselves, but for other people as well.
Yeah. I mean, and I think when we were younger, we were doing a lot for the service of other companies, other people's dreams. And that was the role that we played. And I as, as we've become elder, even before, working with my current company, one of my last corporate at bats was with Warner when I was Warner Media.
Right.
Now Warner Brothers Discovery is about something else. We don't know.
It's going to be called something else in a matter of time here. Yeah.
But I was happy to to take on a role of one of the employee resource groups of the LGBT, and so. In addition to my main job, I started organizing things, just to kind of promote the cause internally, and especially because I had just launched Reverie, and this was during my so I'd been doing some freelance and side hustle things. Now I'm back in the corporate, and it's like, well, if I'm going to be doing these things, I want to feel good about the work that I'm doing, and that was during the time when it was very much about DEIB and and championing diversity, and it felt great, and then that suddenly kind of stopped and got cut off, and I felt very disillusioned, and it was just like, oh well. I've been being a liar now, and so I wanted to be deliberate about what this next thing that I want to do, because it was very important to me. I'm like, okay, it's been great. It's been a great body of work and great companies and awesome experience, but what about this world that we leave behind? And, and so I'm happy that, my documentary is one of those things that I'm like, if it helps people and that's one thing, but what else can I be doing? And how can I ensure that, the people that come behind me have something?
God, we're so lucky you're doing this. We're so lucky. So tell us about the new projects, because I think there's some interesting new things going on too.
Yeah. So so after leaving Warner, I went on walkabout in Australia. Well, that's what I call it. Just to get away and think about what I want to do next. And also, I'd met some amazing content creators in Australia when we were launching Reverie. So it's like, great, we have friends.
It's a great community down there.
Great community.
Yeah.
A great place to lose yourself. And so I came back thinking, I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll move to Australia. And they're like, well, come back in, February and March. And it's also, their Pride time.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay. So in February of 2020, I was back out there. For Pride, but also, I was like, I think I can see myself living here by the end of 2020. And, meeting people, and I happened to meet my co-founder during that time, and then barely got back in the country before the world went into lockdown for COVID. So, so I was doing some production work on the side, some PR work on the side, because I'm now able to expand the wares and not just be a one trick pony. But I was continuing to have conversations with my co-founder Nathan, and who had an XR studio, and we were talking about the future of storytelling, and wouldn't it be great that now that the world of immersive is opening up these new opportunities, and I was inspired by I've told stories across all these other things, print, radio, TV, but I've never told stories in this immersive spaces like virtual reality and mixed reality, and then also thinking about, well, this is also a new media model. So, anyways, so just by the end of 2020, my co-founder was like, you seem to have an interest in all this, because we were just being friendly. And he's like, well, I'm starting this new company. I took all the narrative assets out of my other, XR company that was doing informational, educational, and entertainment, and I'm starting a new canvas. Do you want to come on board? And I was like, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I said, yes, and two things. One, I don't want to just be pigeonholed to just the PR and the communication. I have a passion for it, and especially
Mhm.
building a company.
And you're
It's
good at
important,
it.
and
You're
it's
good
good
at
at it.
it. Yeah,
I enjoy it.
yeah,
I'm not,
yeah, yeah.
and then but I said I'm a queer Black woman, and if I'm going to come on board as a founder of this company, I want to be able to talk about otherness. I want to be able to talk about how it's important for me to be building a company in this new space that can ensure that the content that we're creating, the stories that we're telling, are more reflective of a diverse population.
Mhm.
And I said, and I understand you, cis straight white man, very nice man in
Yeah,
Australia.
ally. He's definitely an
I
ally. Yeah,
definitely ally. I'm
definitely an
like,
ally.
if that's cringy for you, or if you,
Yeah.
like, if you don't, if that's something you want to roll back, he was like, no, let's go. And so I was just like, well, okay. And so because, especially coming out of new media and, then the traditional media
Mhm.
juggernaut, I could see the gatekeepers, and I can see
Mhm.
how not having a seat at that table definitely influences the type of stories that are being told. And sometimes that's intentional, and sometimes that's just the, bias, the, inherent.
Inherent. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
And so yeah, we, like right off the bat, we already had a story called Lustration that was done by a First Nations creator from Australia, based on his graphic novel. Went to South by and all over the world, all kinds of stories. But I love it because even the way that the story is told is based on tens of thousands of years of Aboriginal storytelling, and so to be able to talk about why the pacing is different and why the story
Mhm.
is inherent and just important to him was great. I was like, great, that's our first
Mhm.
project. But since then, like we are working on some other things that are featuring women, or my project that I'm super excited about that I'm developing is When Brooklyn Was Queer. It's an
Mhm.
incredible book by Hugh Ryan, who's just a beautiful human and queer historian, and that book is just ripe with stories for days. And luckily, my good friend Matt Jordan Smith, who was also my co-chair at Warner Media for Turnout, our little queer LGBT group, when he left that company, he became the right hand to Elliot Page, and so they
Mm.
launched Page Boy Productions. And so when we're catching up at lunch one day and just kind of comparing notes, and I'm like, "How's Page Boy?" And he's like, "How's New Canvas?" And how do you tell stories in immersive anyway? And I'm like, well, the same way you tell stories any other way. It starts with a good
Mhm.
story. So if there's anything you happen to be sitting on that maybe isn't selling to these traditional channels, send it to me, because maybe we can do something with it immersively. And so he
Yeah.
was like, yeah, we actually have this great, story called When Brooklyn Was Queer. And, once upon a time we were getting all kinds of meetings with everybody. And now we're getting some stalls and some closed doors.
Pushbacks.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's how we came to get that project, and it's awesome to have somebody like Elliot Page attached to it,
Mhm.
who is not just on board for the subject matter, but he actually is a VR user and a believer in these new immersive experiences.
I mean, oh my God. I can't wait for that project, by the way. Like I'm like fanboying over that one
2027,
too.
fingers crossed. Yeah,
2027. Yeah, yeah.
we hope to go into
You
production
heard it
next
here.
year.
You heard
Yes.
it here on the podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we could talk for hours, but I'm gonna move us to the end, the last couple of minutes here. The name of this podcast now is Ask for an Answer with Jim Fielding. So I'm gonna like ask you for some answers
Okay.
and you've been so good because I haven't even had to plant this because you've just done it. Because, where Ask for an Answer comes from is that I think I grew up being a solution provider and a fixer and a problem solver. I think part of it is that survival mentality
Hmm.
and just, the way we grew up. But I really want you to leave the listener with some of your amazing wisdom. You've given so much already of like, what are like the key questions like that you seek in yourself when you're considering these new projects, these pivots? Because again, it goes back to you have incredible discipline and incredible self-confidence and belief. But like, what do you ask yourself when you were like thinking about making the move, like to New Canvas, right? And partnering with him and these things, like, what are those things that you ask yourself? Like, what are your filters basically that you ask yourself?
I definitely start with how does it feel,
Mm,
like, and that was something in earlier, like I think especially when you're starting out, you don't get to
mm-mm,
really spend a lot of time with how does this feel?
mm-mm,
And now, having worked in, you know, in the world for 20, 30 years, like it is important because you're spending so much time with people. And, I think I've been fortunate that I knew choosing PR, I never wanted to work for big tobacco or things that were going to bring evil to the world. But even thinking about some of the companies that we, like what are their values? And so when I think about, if I'm going to work on a project, how do I feel? How do the people in that like around that project make me feel? And it sounds super fluffy, but it's so important because that's your internal compass. And if you can't ground yourself in that, then it's going to be hard for any other goodness to come out. And then I think about what's the opportunity? Like is there an opportunity to do something different that hasn't been done before? Like when Brooklyn was queer, I want to tell this VR, like create a VR series that's based on LGBT history, and do it immersively. That's never been done before.
Never, yeah.
And it's less about it's just like, oh, there's space, there's blue ocean. Let's go, let's go plant a flag there. Let's go be in that and take up space there. I think that's really where I start. And then, I also think about, like in terms of the opportunity, what is that opportunity creatively?
Those questions, it's such a great place to wrap this up because I think, again, for all of our listeners of any age, it's like doing that gut check with yourself, like, how do I feel? I do think is something, again, you learn when you're older. Like, I wish I'd learned that when I was younger as one of the filters and decisions I made. I also think you make a great point about, like, the blue ocean, the white spaceness of it all, of course. Like, is it viable, right? Are these ideas viable? But I also think you make such a fascinating point about surrounding yourself with the right people, right? And that it's not an individual journey. And I think I talk about that all the time. We throw the word community out a lot, but your chosen family, your work family, like all these different words, it's a collective. And I think, especially in creative industries, especially in the industry you're in this Hollywood and this storytelling, and it's not, even though like there are some solo moments in it, it really is about surrounding yourself with people that you want to spend time with. And for me, I also call it like, I have, like this no asshole, no bullshit meter now, right? And I think that, again, I've developed that over time where it's like, there's so many amazing people in the world that I don't need to spend time with people who aren't amazing. No. And I'm not going to change them, right? I'm not going to change them.
It's not your job.
It's not my job. And I'm like, you know what? That's your authenticity. Like, that's great. But my authenticity is I don't want to associate with that. So
and it reflects what you leave behind in the world. Because that's the final piece. Like,
legacy.
What is the output? Yes. What is the output of what we're doing together? How is that going to impact the world? It's all got to tie together.
No, it's amazing. Well, I'm so thrilled we got to do this. And we are so lucky in the world that you're in it and doing what you're doing. You. You should be so proud of yourself and all the people that are going to listen to this, your siblings and your parents. It's amazing the impact you're making. And I just think of those little queer kids in Gainesville, Florida, and Toledo, Ohio, and Topeka, Kansas, and Cincinnati, all those places. And by the way, in Los Angeles and San Francisco, because the path to owning your authenticity is hard for everyone.
Especially if you're in a community you could be living in one of these cities, but if you don't have access to that, then you're
and if you're a person of color or a certain religion or a certain background where you absolutely are not accepted, or you don't see people that look like yourselves. I think so much of what you're doing is, we're going to feel the impact for years, and I cannot wait for your new projects.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here today.
It's been a pleasure, Jim, and I love meeting you and talking to you in person. Let's do it again.
What a dream. I know. I'm like, we need another episode.
Let's do some panels and things together.
For sure. That's it.
Yeah.
You bring me. Yeah,
I was like the PR person. You've already said yes.
Yes.
I've already.
I love it. I think any opportunity to share stories. I always say any opportunity to be in community and in conversation.
We're going to bring some people in community and have a talk. Yes. You've already planted. Just stay tuned.
All right,
stay tuned.
I can't wait. I'm here. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Thanks for spending this time with us on Ask for an Answer. If this conversation sparks something for you, don't just nod and move on. Take one idea, one question, one uncomfortable and bring it into your next meeting, your next one-on-one, or your next big decision. That's how this becomes a practice, not just a podcast. If you're leading a team, a classroom, a company, or just your own next chapter, you don't have to have it all figured out. You do have to be willing to listen, to ask better questions, and to create the kind of safety where people will actually tell you what they see. If this episode was useful, share it with someone who's in the arena with you. And if you want more tools, stories, and real talk leadership moments, make sure you follow the show and leave a review so others can find us. I'm Jim Fielding. Thank you for being here, for leading with less armor and more intention. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and keep asking for an answer.